The winter of 1886 was unforgiving, and a desperate mother had walked through the frozen Wyoming wilderness with her little boy, carrying nothing but a worn blanket and a heart full of love. When she finally reached a lonely cowboy's ranch, she whispered just 5 heartbreaking words. "Let the boy eat." The cowboy soon realized she had no money, no home, and no one left to turn to, but she would sacrifice everything for her son. What happened next would change all 3 of their lives forever. So, if you love emotional Old West stories filled with courage, kindness, and unexpected hope, like this video, share it with someone who loves Western stories, and subscribe to the channel for more heartfelt tales. Now, let's get started. The winter of 1886 had settled heavily over the Wyoming frontier. For 3 days, snow had fallen without mercy, burying the narrow trails beneath white drifts and turning the open prairie into a frozen wilderness. Far from the nearest town stood a lonely ranch owned by a quiet cowboy named Samuel Hayes. Samuel was a hard-working man who had learned long ago not to expect kindness from the world. He lived alone, kept a few cattle, and spent most evenings beside his small fireplace. But that night, just after sunset, someone knocked on his door. Samuel reached for his rifle before opening it. Standing outside was a young woman holding the hand of a little boy. Both were covered in snow. The woman's dress was torn at the hem, and her thin coat could barely protect her from the bitter cold. The boy's lips were pale. "Please," the woman whispered. "We mean no trouble." Samuel lowered his rifle slightly. "Who are you?" "My name is Clara," she answered. "This is my son Daniel." Samuel looked at the boy. The child was trembling. "How long have you been out there?" Clara hesitated. "Since yesterday." Samuel's expression hardened. "Come inside." Clara stepped over the threshold, still holding Daniel's hand tightly. She looked around the small cabin as though she could hardly believe someone had allowed them in. Samuel immediately placed another log on the fire. "Sit down." Daniel moved closer to the flames. Samuel went to the kitchen and returned with a bowl of hot stew and a piece of bread. "Eat." Daniel stared at the food. His mother nodded. "Go ahead, sweetheart." The boy began eating quickly, almost desperately. Samuel watched him for a moment before looking at Clara. "You should eat too." Clara shook her head. "I'm not hungry." Samuel knew that was a lie. He pushed another bowl toward her. "Ma'am, I've seen hungry men before. I know what hunger looks like." Clara's eyes filled with tears. She finally whispered, "Let the boy eat." Samuel remained silent. Then Clara lowered her voice. "He hasn't had a proper meal in 2 days." Samuel looked at Daniel, who was carefully scraping the last bit of stew from the bowl. Something changed in the cowboy's expression. "Where is the boy's father?" Clara stared into the fire. "Dead." "And your family?" "Gone." Samuel waited. Clara pulled her worn coat tighter around herself. "We had a little farm," she said. "A man took it from us. I tried to fight him, but I had no money and no one willing to help." She looked at her son. "So I walked." Samuel glanced at the empty bag hanging from her shoulder. There was nothing inside. No food, no money, no belongings, only a mother's determination to keep her child alive. For the first time in years, Samuel felt the loneliness of his ranch differently. He realized Clara had arrived with almost nothing. But she had carried one thing all the way through the snow: love for her son. The following morning, Samuel woke before sunrise. The storm had finally passed, leaving the Wyoming prairie covered beneath a blanket of silver snow. The world outside was silent, but inside the cabin, Samuel heard the soft sound of footsteps. He stepped outside and saw Clara standing near the gate. Daniel was beside her, wrapped tightly in the old blanket. Samuel frowned. "Where are you going?" Clara turned slowly. "I'm sorry for leaving without saying goodbye." Samuel walked closer. "You don't have anywhere to go." Clara looked toward the distant mountains. "That doesn't mean I can stay here. You and the boy need shelter." Clara lowered her eyes. "You've already given us food. You've already given us warmth. I cannot ask for more." Samuel studied her tired face. "Who said you were asking?" Clara looked confused. Samuel pointed toward the ranch. "I could use help." "With what?" "The kitchen, the garden when spring comes." The house? Clara shook her head. I don't know if I can repay you. Samuel gave a faint smile. I didn't offer you a loan. For the first time, Clara almost smiled. But then her eyes filled with tears. You don't understand, she whispered. I've spent my whole life trying to survive. Every time someone offered help, there was always a price. Samuel's expression became serious. Not this time. He turned toward the cabin. Come inside. The coffee is getting cold. Clara stood silently for a moment before taking Daniel's hand. They returned to the ranch. Days became weeks. Clara worked hard. She cooked meals, cleaned the cabin, mended clothes, and helped Samuel with the chickens. Daniel followed Samuel everywhere, learning how to feed the horses and repair small fences. Slowly, the lonely ranch began to change. There was laughter in the kitchen. Smoke rose from the chimney every morning. And Samuel no longer ate his supper alone. One evening, Clara placed a warm meal on the table. Samuel looked at her. You didn't have to make this much. Clara smiled. I wanted to. Daniel sat beside them, laughing about something that had happened near the barn. A moment. Then he looked at Clara. You know, he said quietly, when you arrived, I thought I was giving you a place to stay. Clara raised an eyebrow. What do you think now? Samuel smiled. I think you gave me a home. Clara's eyes filled with tears. She finally understood that she had not arrived at Samuel's ranch with nothing. She had brought love, courage, and a reason for a lonely cowboy to open his heart again. And sometimes, that was worth more than all the gold in the world.